Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda. Jai Shri Radhe Govinda, Jai Shri Gaur Nitai, Gaur Nitai, Gaur Nitai. Jai Shri Gaur Nitai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Jigna Mataji. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to Understand Gita in 18 days by ISKCON Bangalore. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for coming. Hare Krishna. So today's chapter 13, the last six chapters of Bhagavad Gita we start today, and it is also the last 1/3 of Bhagavad Gita. Let's start. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantha Radha Kantha Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priyai. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So today the chapter will start with Arjuna asking Krishna 6 questions. Now why don't some of you tell me Arjuna asking Krishna 8 questions in chapter 8? So you can raise your hand if you know, because today we will add 6 more questions. Plus there have been so many other questions in so many other chapters. So Manish Mishra Prabhu is answering every day. Okay, Prabhu, so please forgive me. I think I don't know his iPhone. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
This is Dr. Puja.
Hare Krishna Puja Mataji. Yes.
Yeah, the 8th questions that Arjuna asked Krishna in chapter 8. The first one was, what is Brahman or spirit? And what is karma or the fruitive activities? And what is Adhyatam, the controller of the body?
Wait. Adhyatma is the nature of the self. What is Adhyatma? The nature of the self.
Yes. And what is Adhibhuta? That is the material manifestation. And what are the demigods or the Adi Deva? And who is the enjoyer of a sacrifice or Adi Yajna, and where does he live in the body? And how to remember Krishna at the time of death.
Very nice. Perfect. Thank you. So those were the 8 questions asked. At least 3 or 4 people know. So this is the chapter name, Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga, the nature, the enjoyer and consciousness. Let's pay our obeisances to Shri Radha Govinda before we proceed. This is what we did yesterday, Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti over impersonalism. What was the question that Arjuna asked Krishna in the beginning of the chapter? What was the question? You can raise your hand quickly. What was the question that Arjuna asked Krishna in the beginning of chapter 12? It's written over there. Kunnu Kapoor. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'm gonna keep moving if you are not gonna unmute. Anjana call Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Which is better, impersonal form or the personal Bhava Bhakti, or the impersonal form of Krishna?
Okay. Okay. Thank you,
Which
Mataji.
is better? Which is better?
Which form should be worshipped?
Ah,
Devotional service or inspirational Brahman?
what is it, Mataji? Please say again.
Which form should be worshipped? A universal form or with 4 hands?
Okay, Mataji. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Manish Mishra Prabhu.
Krishna Mataji, I think Arjuna inquired about which is going to be more perfect, either the engaging in the devotional service or worshipping the impersonal Brahman, the
Engaging in the
impersonal form
devotional
of,
service.
like engaging in the personal form or impersonal manifestation of Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. The question was that whose worship is better? The one who worships the personal form of Krishna. It's not mentioned 400 or 200. That doesn't matter. But personal form of Krishna, or one who worships the impersonal form of Krishna. And then I asked question that the universal form of Krishna, is it more near to impersonal or personal form? But he asked a very simple question: which worship is better? Worshipping the personal form or one who worships the impersonal or Brahmajyoti? So Krishna explains that the worship of the personal form is better. Could be 200, could be 400. It could be in the form of Lord, other plenary expansions like Lord Rama or Narasimha Dev. It doesn't matter, but personal form. And then he also explained that impersonal worship is very troublesome. And then he explained progressive stages of devotion. Can anyone tell me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like in one breath, what were the progressive stages of devotion from highest to the low to like coming down? Anyone knows? Okay, you have. If you don't want to unmute or raise your hand, then you can write to me in the chat. Okay, Dr. Pooja and Kunnu Kapoor Matajis have already spoken. Someone else. What is the hierarchy? Lakshmi Prasad Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Lakshmi Prasad Mataji, what is it?
Hare Krishna Mataji. It's Ananya Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, Nishkam Bhakti, Sakam.
Nishkam Karma Yoga.
Okay, Sakam Karma Yoga.
Not Sakam Karma Yoga nahi hota, Sakam Karma hota hai. There's
Okay.
nothing yoga there.
Okay, Sakam Karma, then Gyan Yoga.
Just Jnana, not yoga.
Okay, Gyan. And then Dhyan, through Dhyan.
Dhyan, and then
Renunciation.
of the fruits of activities. Okay,
Right.
thank you very much. Fair enough. Close to the right answer. Okay, so qualities, and then we studied qualities that endear Krishna from verse 13 to 20. And today we are going to study Arjuna asked 6 questions to Krishna. Okay, and Krishna describes Kshetra, answers all the 6 questions. Okay, so Kshetra, Kshetragna, and Jnana. Then process of acquiring knowledge, then Gnana, which is the object of knowledge. Sorry, Prakriti, Purusha, and the union, and then the vision of knowledge. It's a bit. This chapter is a bit Sankhya chapter, a lot of philosophy. So there are 3 sections of Bhagavad Gita. Okay. The first section is chapter 1 to 6, where we deal with karma, our action, an action on the platform of knowledge, which is Jnana Yoga, or perfection of actions performed to please Lord Krishna, which is Bhakti Yoga. Then chapter 7 to 12 is exclusively Bhakti Yoga. Chapter 13 to 18 deal with Jnana, knowledge, and then perfection of Jnana is to become a devotee of Krishna or Bhakti Yoga. So question arises, the last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are full of knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge. If bhakti is a culmination, why is jnana presented in the last 6 chapters? Any person who's serious in the study of Bhagavad Gita will naturally ask this question, that already Bhakti Yoga has been presented in the middle 6 chapters. So what makes Krishna speak about jnana once again? And that too in a very high level. In truth, the entire Bhagavad Gita is bhakti. Okay, so the entire Bhagavad Gita is bhakti. The first 6 chapter discuss bhakti through how to achieve bhakti through work. So the last 6 chapter describe how to achieve it through knowledge, and the middle 6 discuss bhakti itself. Also in 12th chapter, Krishna explained how he personally delivers his devotees from birth and death. That's Mrityu Sansara Sagarat. So the last 6 chapter provide the philosophical knowledge necessary to extricate oneself from the material world. Jnana has its use in assisting our detachment from Maya and our attachment to Krishna. So if we don't know who Krishna is, how can we become attached to Krishna? So there is a use of this knowledge to enhance our attachment to Krishna. Hence, when we use knowledge as a means to attain devotion, it becomes part of bhakti. Okay, so understood that we are not just accumulating knowledge for the sake of being called as a big scholar, but accumulating knowledge to understand Krishna and enhance our bhakti is a part of Bhakti Yoga. And these are the 6 questions that Arjun asked Krishna in the beginning of the chapter. Now, okay, so he asked Krishna, what is Prakriti or material nature? What is Purusha or enjoyer of Prakriti? Kshetra, what is Kshetra or body? What is Kshetragna or observer in the body? It should be or the observer in the body. There are 2 observers in the body. One is a soul, and other is a super soul. Then what is Jnanam or knowledge? Understanding Kshetra and Kshetragna. And what is Jnanam or goal of knowledge? That is Paramatma, realization. Arjun said, my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the end of knowledge. The blessed Lord then said, this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field of activity, field. And one who knows this body is called knower of the field. Basically, he's asking question that what is Prakriti or nature, Purusha or enjoyer. Then number 3, what is the field or of activity, which is 3. Then number 4, who is the knower of the field. Number 5, what is knowledge? And number 6, what is the end of knowledge? So nice questions, right? So Krishna answers now. He already answered what is Kshetra, and then he's going to expand on it. Kshetra means field. In literal meaning of the Kshetra is field of activity, where we do field, where we do the activity. For example, agricultural land is a field of activity for the farmer, where the farmer goes and grows its crops and other things. Okay, so this is 3rd verse. Kshetragnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetragno jnanam yattaj jnana matam mama. O sign of Bharata, you should know, you should understand that I'm also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its owner is called knowledge. That is my opinion. So Kshetra means the body that the soul has, like your body, my body, that is called Kshetra, because we do our activities, fruitive activities or Krishna conscious activities through the body, right? If I don't have the senses, the working senses, let's say one of the working senses is vocal cords or eyes, then how can you talk? Or ears, like how can we talk, how can we see, and how can we hear? So that's the field that's giving us these assets. And then there are 2 knowers, one who knows this body. There are 2 knowers. One knower is the soul, other knower is the super soul. And they are always the knower. These are the 3 levels of consciousness that a person goes through every day in their life, each one of us. This is called Jagrati, when somebody is awake. This is called Swapna. And this is called Jagrati, Swapna. Rupa Mataji, what is the 3rd state, which is in Sanskrit? What is it called as when it is a deep sleep? I'm forgetting the name. Do you remember? Yes, Mataji, do you know?
Sushupti, Mataji?
Sushupti, very nice. Thank you. Yes. So thank you so much. So yes, Sushupti. So Jagrati, Sapna, and Sushupti. So in all the stages, so Jagrati is when someone is awake, like you are awake, I am awake right now, and we are very aware that I'm this body and I have so many things to do, and I have this much day has passed for me and this much is remaining. So that aware state, at that time also there are two knowers, soul and super soul. And then when somebody goes to sleep, that's and then there is a dreaming stage in the sleep, in which the gross body is lying at one place, but the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego, they are somewhere else, like we're dreaming. That time also there are two knowers, soul and super soul. And then there is a deep sleep where there are no, where there are no dreams. That time subtle body and gross body both are sleeping. At that time also soul and super soul are the knower. So actually Krishna is always the knower. So, and what is knowledge? To understand this, what is Kshetra and what is Kshetragna, that Krishna says is knowledge. And to understand this body and its owner is called knowledge. That is my opinion. So this is one another example to explain what is Kshetra and what is Kshetragna. It's a little bit difficult topic, but it's actually not so difficult if it is understood well. So for example, if there is a farmer, okay, now the farmer has its own field of activity. You can see this. So that is called Kshetra or field of activity. Now this Kshetra is known by two things. One is the farmer itself who owns the farm, and that is the knower of the field. But then there is another knower, and that knower is the sun. Sun knows not only this field but all the field across the globe, right? But the farmer only knows about its own field. Are you following me? Are you following me, if I may please ask?
Yes,
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay,
Mataji.
thank you. If you don't follow me, you can raise your hand. Okay, this is a little difficult topic. So the farmer knows only about its own field, but sun knows about all the fields across the globe. So that way, the soul is the knower, and the super soul is also a knower. But then there is a difference between the two knowers. And what is the difference? The difference is that the soul only knows about its own body. Okay, I only know about pains and pleasures of my body. You only know about pains and pleasures of your body. We don't know about each other's body, right? But super soul or Krishna knows about each and every body, not just human body, but each and every body at the same time. So he's a super knower in that case. And the soul is a minute knower, very, very small. Okay, so basically what is happening here, Krishna is answering is Kshetra and Jnanam in verse 3. So answer to the fourth question, Kshetragna. There is also a second knower of all fields, the super soul. And fifth question, what is Jnanam? Is the understand body and its knower, super soul and soul is called knowledge. Okay, to study, and what is knowledge? Jnana, to study the subject matter of field of activity, and the knower of field very minutely. Kshetra, field or the field of activity or the body, and two knowers are super soul and individual soul. The two kinds of knowers of the field of activity. This is what it is. Now, that knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is specially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So that knowledge, this knowledge where the field of activity and the knower of field of activity is described. So Krishna is actually, Srila Prabhupada taught us, right, that whenever we speak, we give evidence from the Shastras to validate our speech. If we cannot give evidence, then it is an opinion. Then we don't accept opinion. We want the reference from Guru or Sadhu or Shastra. If we cannot quote, then you have to say that whom did you hear it from? And if that person is authorized, that is also a reference. So over here, Supreme Personality of Godhead actually setting an example that how to say or understand this difficult subject matter. Whatever he says is knowledge. Right? Whatever Krishna says is knowledge because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But over here, he's giving reference that actually whatever I'm saying is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that Krishna is the supreme sage, but other than that, Vyasdev, Narad Muni, so many other sages, they say the same thing. What is field of activity and what is the knower of the field of activity? The same thing is said by many other sages in many other Vedic writings. And it is specially presented in Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra means the code. You know, coding, I think most of you know what's coding, right? This is the world of coding.
Yes.
Like you code a,
Mataji.
I don't know what it technically called as, like you code something and then there is like a whole world behind that. So you code a website and in a few, you know, www. let's say iskonbangalore.com, and behind that is a huge like thing. You can learn about the temple, you can learn about the address, you can learn about activities, you can learn about how can you get involved. Like so many things open up just by typing this www.iskonbangalore.com. So there's a coding there. Like that, Vedanta Sutra means that a lot of Vedic knowledge is coded in these words. So actually the coding didn't start in present world. The coding was started long back, first by our acharyas. For example, Athata Brahma Jigyasa. Athata Brahma Jigyasa is a coding, is a Vedanta Sutra language. Athata Brahma Jigyasa means that therefore become curious to know who you are. So behind that Athata Brahma Jigyasa, there is a lot of philosophy about soul, about body, about super soul, about the relationship, about the goal of relationship, so many things. With all reasoning as to cause and effect. This is a little bit advanced topic, all reasoning as to cause and effect. So the cause is always present in the effect. Cause is always present in effect. I can explain it by saying that if you look at a child, let's say a son or a daughter of a person, so that's an effect. So in the effect, the parents are present, right? I can say that in my daughter or my son, I am present. Can you relate to it? I am present at the same, so I am the cause, but
Yes,
I am
Mataji.
also present in my effect.
Again, Mataji,
Yes.
Yes.
repeat the sentence, Mataji, please.
Okay, so in I am just giving an example to understand the cause and effect. That let's say that in my daughter, she's the effect of my presence. You know, I give or somebody, let's say somebody's child. The effect is the child and the cause is the parents. The parents are present in the child, right? In a way that you don't be say that, oh, you look like your mom, you look like your dad, you look like you're this, you look like you're this. So that means the cause is present in the effect. Similar, is it understood, Mataji? One Mataji was asking, please repeat.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mataji.
Okay. So in that way, the cause is present in the effect. So in that way, the cause, the effect, or the body is the effect, or the soul is the effect. The super soul is present. But anyhow, these are the things which are explained in all the Vedanta Sutras with all reasoning as to cause and effect, how it is present, in what form it is present, what degree it is present, where it is present. All these things are explained. Now, this is a very interesting slide. Does anyone know about the 5 levels of consciousness of a living entity? Do you know about this? Annamaya, Pranamaya, Kosha? Yes or no? Or maybe so.
Yes.
You know?
No, ma'am. No, Mataji.
No, no, Mataji. No.
Yes.
Manish Mishra Prabhu, no? You should be a teacher. I was going to refer you to teach.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Mataji, I skipped my mind. I would like to hear it again, please.
Okay. So there are different levels of consciousness. Let's talk about human beings only right now. Generally, I say Annamaya, example of an animal. But in a human being also, all these levels of consciousness are present. So consciousness is defined as a symptom of the soul. Consciousness is not the life itself, but it is just a symptom that there is a life. For example, how many of you have seen the back part of your head without the help of a mirror? How many of you have seen the back part of your head? The back here.
No one.
No,
No
No
one,
one.
Mataji.
Like, no, right? So, but if somebody comes and taps your head or pulls the hair behind, will you feel the pain? Will you feel the pain or no?
Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes, Mataji.
So how do you feel the pain? Where is this pain sensation coming from? Because the soul which is present in the heart has extended its consciousness to that place. So there is a consciousness which is a symptom of the soul. But if the soul has withdrawn its consciousness For example, some people, they don't have one part of their body is paralyzed, right? Sometimes that happens. So what does it mean paralyzed in spiritual language, or it means that the soul has withdrawn its effect from there. So even though the body parts is there, but there is no use, there is no working capacity, or there is no capacity to sense anything, because the consciousness is withdrawn. So wherever the soul's consciousness is present, that is a symptom of the life. Okay, that this body is living, still has energy of the soul. So that is consciousness, the definition of consciousness. Just remember this. Prabhupada describes about this in a book called Science of Self-Realization, where he describes consciousness as a symptom of the soul. And I can pull up the reference if you remind me at the end. Okay, so now how much of consciousness we can develop, that is up to us. If somebody is only in Annamaya Kosha, where somebody thinks that my existence is solely dependent on food. If I don't eat, I will die. So they find higher authority in food. That is called Annamaya Kosha. And we can give example of a small child. A small child has no consciousness about its danger or safety, right? If somebody comes to harm the small child, they will not be able to understand what's happening, right? Like imagine like 1 month old, 2 month old, until you can say about 12 months of age, this is a very low level of consciousness, right? Can you relate to it? Yes or no?
Yes, Mataji.
Not much.
Yes, Mataji, of course.
Okay, I just keep checking if you're awake, because this is a difficult topic. What can I do? So Annamaya Kosha is okay. My existence is dependent on food, and if there is no food, then I'm gonna die. So that's Annamaya Kosha. But beyond that is Pranamaya Kosha. That in that one becomes aware that yes, my existence is dependent on food, but I'm also living. I also need some defense mechanism. So that then that person starts to build a defense around the body. So that I consciousness is still the body, no mind or intelligence yet. So there is a lot of defense. They live in a house with a lot of security or Z security around the person when they're going out. So that's Pranamaya Kosha, that develop the consciousness to say, okay, there's a food, but also I can die. So because I'm living right now, I need protection. And then somebody goes higher, then they come to the kosha called Manomaya Kosha or Gyanmaya Kosha, where one is mostly in the mental platform, where one becomes a very high philosopher or classical singer because they want to find out some talent in the mind. So they are above the level of Annamaya and Pranamaya in the sense that, okay, I need food, okay, I need protection, but then there is something else in me. Okay, and then Vigyanmaya Kosha. Vigyanmaya Kosha is that, okay, there's an element of knowledge there. And the person is at the level of the intelligence in Vigyanmaya Kosha. That, okay, I have a mind, but then I have to, but then I can't be just dependent on my mind. Vigyanmaya Kosha, the person who is impersonalist, who is a Mayavadi philosopher, they can reach up to Vigyanmaya Kosha. Vigyanmaya Kosha, one can realize two features out of Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat means eternal, Chit means full of knowledge, and Ananda means full of bliss. So in Vigyanmaya Kosha, one can achieve Sat potency, which is like, I'm not the body, I'm the soul, and I don't die, I don't take birth, and I'm forever. And one can acquire this knowledge, this knowledge of the soul, which is Chit. But again, the bliss part is still missing. There is no bliss there, but there is some sort of an intelligence which is higher than the lower levels. And then Anandmaya Kosha. Anandmaya Kosha is the highest kosha, which we studied in our IQ, EQ, SQ. So SQ is the spiritual quotient is highly developed in Anandmaya Kosha, where there is a full realization of Sat, Chit, and Ananda potency. Okay, so up to Vigyanmaya Kosha, one is still on the lower level of consciousness. Yes, there is a hierarchy and is highest, but the highest is Anandmaya Kosha, where one realizes its full nature. Okay, so that is explained in 13.5 purport. Prabhupada gives a very long purport if you go back and read. And now Krishna is going to, so far what did we study? So far we studied Arjuna asked Krishna 6 questions. What is Prakriti? What is Purusha? What is Jnanam? What is Kshetra? What is Kshetragna? What is Jnanam? And what is Genam? Krishna so far answered the definition of Kshetra, which is a field of activity. And then he answered the definition of Kshetragna, which are the 2 knowers, which is a soul and a super soul of the field of activities. And then he also answered the question that what is knowledge, and knowledge is understanding the relationship between Kshetra and Kshetragna. Now he's going to tell us what is this Kshetra made of. And body means gross body and subtle body. So what are the ingredients of this body, the Kshetra? 5 great elements. These are 24 ingredients, okay? 5 great elements, which is Panch Mahabhut, which is earth, water, fire, air, ether. So that's 5. Okay. And then becomes false ego is the 6th. Intelligence, the unmanifested, and the 10 senses and mind. 10 senses, the mind, the 5 sense objects. So up to here, we have already calculated 24. 5 great elements is earth, water, fire, air, ether. Then 6 becomes false ego. 7 becomes intelligent. 8 becomes unmanifested. The unmanifested is, what is unmanifested? Who can tell me? Yes. Who can tell me what is? Huh?
Pradhana Mataji, before the material creation happens. Pradhana.
No, I am hearing you, but what is there in it? That's a very high level. Already the language is very high. so simplify. What is there in the Pradhan? What is there?
Before all the living entities,
no.
come into existence, they all are in a different state. So unmanifested state.
No. That's not how Prabhupada explains in this purport. But yes, technically you're right, but that's not how it is explained here. But yes, Gaurav Govardhan Das.
Hare Krishna Mataji, it is the Paramatma.
No.
The super soul.
No. Tukke sare, huh? Thank you for trying though. Okay, so unmanifested are the 3 modes of material nature which are not yet manifested. Mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. Okay, so that's 8. Then 10 senses, that becomes 18. So 10 senses are 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses. Okay, who's going to tell me what's 5 working senses and what's 5 knowledge acquiring senses? Huh? So he already answered. Okay, so 5, you already answered 2. Okay, Kayur, yes. Kayur Vagela Prabhu. Yes, what are the 5
Krishna, Ma, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. So
can you repeat the question, Ma?
5 working senses, what are they?
5 working senses. Hands, legs, 5. Our vision, eyes.
Okay. Okay, go on. I'll think.
Sense of hearing, audition, sense of smell.
Those are knowledge acquiring senses. Okay, you're talking about knowledge acquiring senses. Okay, then sense of touch. So those are knowledge acquiring senses. They're not working senses. We acquire knowledge by those 5 senses. Yes, Manish Mishra Prabhu. What are the 5 working senses?
Hare Krishna Ma, 5 working senses would be voice, legs, hand, genital, and anus.
Very nice. Yes, these are the 5 working senses. Okay, so oh Krishna, what did I do? So that becomes 18, and then the 19th is the mind, and then 5 sense objects is 19 plus 5 is 24. Okay, so these are the 24. If you have eye, then it means I have to have an object of vision. If you have ears, then there's an object of hearing. Like that, there are objects of object of taste, object of touch, and object of smell. So like that, there are 5 sense objects. So the Kshetra, the gross body, is made of these things. Where there is a little bit of subtle body also, intelligence and mind, but that's all. Okay, our body is now summarized in like 3 lines. And desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. So these are the interactions. If we interact, like the senses come in touch with the sense objects, and sometimes there is a pleasure, sometimes there is a displeasure. Prabhupada says in third canto, please listen, third canto Srimad Bhagavatam, starting from, I think it's chapter 19 onwards, when Kapila Dev starts describing the Sankhya philosophy to his mother, Devahuti, and Prabhupada gives so nice lectures. He says that our sense of liking and disliking in material world for our own self, or hatred or friendliness, are just a product of ethereal changes. It's actually not real, just a product of ethereal changes. That's why it's not stable. So we like something, we desire something, we hate something. There's a happiness, and then there's also a distress. And then the aggregate, the collection of all these things, and the life symptoms and convictions which we make about our own self. So I have to lead my life in this principle, that principle, and not according to Krishna's principle. These are all, in summary, to consider to be the field of activity and its interactions. There's nothing more, nothing. And these are the 20 qualities. Now, in verse 6 to 7, Krishna described the ingredients of Kshetra. Understood? Like Kshetra means, what is Kshetra? What is Kshetra?
Field of activity.
Field of activities. Very good. Everyone is
The body.
body or field of activities. Correct. So
activities.
now Krishna is going to describe, so he described the ingredients of the field of activity. And now he's going to describe the qualities. If one develops these qualities, then one can actually extricate oneself from this field of activity. Even while living in the body, one can actually not be so attached to the activities of the body if we develop these qualities. So aman vittam, adam bhitvam, ahimsa kshantir arjavam, acharya upasanam socham, stairyam atma vinigraha, indriyartheshu vairagyam, ahankara evacha, janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam, asaktir anabhishvangah putra dara grihadeshu, nityam cha samachittatvam, ishtanisto papatisho, mai cha anya yogena bhakti ravya bicharini, vivikta desha sevitvam, aratir jana samshadi, adhyatma jnana nityatvam, tatva jnanartham darshanam, etaj jnanam iti proktam, ajnanam yad ato anyathaha. So this is etaj jnanam iti proktam. All this is the knowledge, and everything whatsoever it is ignorance. All these are declared to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. Okay, so there are 20 qualities. Humility, aman vittam. And humility means not just means that I'm very humble and I don't take offense. You know, if you ask this definition of humility, everyone have their own definition. When we do book distribution on the field, on the road or street, I generally ask this question. Please tell me what does the word humility mean to you, or being humble mean to you? So I have a collection of definitions now. I know like what people will say, but according to Krishna, humility or aman vittam means not to be anxious to have satisfaction of being honored. There's a little bit of a tinge of deriving a satisfaction that I will be honored. That means I'm not humble. Little tinge is enough for not becoming humble enough. Pridelessness or adambhitvam, understanding that you're not the body, and there's honor and dishonor are the same. Non-violence, ahimsa. This is very interesting. So there are two meanings of non-violence. In the morning, we had advanced level class. We did chapter 17, and there also non-violence came as an austerity of the body in chapter 17. And we were discussing that two definitions of non-violence are there. One is that not killing any other living entity, or not practicing violence against someone. And the other definition of ahimsa is, unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge, one is practicing violence. This is revolutionary, right? If I am not trying to become Krishna conscious in my life, then I'm actually living a very violent life. Tolerance or shanti, be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others. Simplicity, arjavam, so straightforward that you can disclose the truth even to an enemy. Accepting a spiritual master is essential. Of all the 20 qualities, this is essential, because once we accept a spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master, then all these other things are very easy to understand and develop. Then cleanliness, external and internal. Steadiness, determined to make progress in spiritual life. Self-control, atma vinigraha. Reject anything unfavorable to spiritual advancement and control the senses. Renunciation of sense objects, indriya artheshu vairagya, not to cater to unnecessary demands, gratified only to keep body fit for devotional service. This is a very high level, right? Ahankar or unahankar, absence of false ego, reject I am this body or mind and accept I am Krishna's servant. Perceive the evils of Janma, Mrityu, Jara and Vyadhi. Regularly hear about these from proper source and become disgusted with material life. Asakti, detachment, be ready to sacrifice everything for Krishna, no entanglement with wife, children, family. Should practice it if we can do it in a Krishna conscious way, but renounce if unfavorable for Krishna. Not that no one is allowed to marry in ISKCON, but the house should be so nice that there is a devotee, that everyone is a devotee of Krishna. Then there is no need to take sannyas also. There is no need to leave that family where Krishna consciousness can be cultivated in one's own home. But if not, then one has to consult with the superior authority before one takes a step of leaving. Otherwise, if we don't consult with the superior authority, what should I do in a situation where I cannot find Krishna consciousness in my own home? Let's say somebody leaves it and does not consult the superior devotees or devotees who are superior to us, then that kind of a renunciation is going to be very, very incomplete. That kind of a renunciation will not have a very solid foundation, because the foundation was the mind. And our mind is a cheater. The cheater is within us, not outside. Okay, even-mindedness, unalloyed devotional service. I think we have been talking about it. Aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from general mass of people, accepting importance of self-realization and philosophical search, rejection of useless research and philosophical topics. If you read Prabhupada's purport, Prabhupada has actually expanded all these things to particular varna and particular ashrama too. Right. So I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So now what did he describe so far? He described the kshetra. The kshetra is the field of activity where there is gross body and a subtle body. Then Krishna also gave us the 20 qualities, which we develop them, then we can extricate ourselves from that kshetra. Even while living in the kshetra, not be a part of it, as though unaffected. And now he's talking about the kshetragnas, the two kshetragnas, the soul and the super soul. In verse number 13, this Brahman, the spirit, the beginningless is subordinate to me, is the kshetragna, the knower, which is the soul. Brahman word has more than one meaning, right? We studied I gave you the reference to look for the meanings of Brahman in 8.1. So Brahman also means impersonal effulgence. Brahman also means material nature. Brahman also means soul. So in this particular verse, Krishna is describing about the spirit or the soul, which is a knower, of one of the knowers of the field of activity or the kshetra, and which is beginningless, so it's eternal, and it is subordinate to me, so it's a part and parcel of Krishna, and it lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. It's not a part of this material world. Sarvendriya gunabhasham sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarvabhrichchaiva nirgunam gunabhoktarcha. The super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is a master of all the modes of material nature. So this is the second knower. The second knower is super soul. So now Krishna is describing super soul, and we are short of time, but I generally ask this question in this class, that Krishna is saying here that he is the source of all senses, yet he is without senses. What does it mean? Sarvendriya gunabhasham sarvendriya vivarjitam. It's an apparent contradiction, right? You say something I have, and then at the other line you say I don't have. So generally I ask people, but I'm going to answer here. What it really means is that Krishna does not have material senses. Krishna has senses. We study in Brahma Samhita. Angani yasya sakalendriya vritti manti pashyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti ananda chinmya rasa tujvala vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti. What it means is one part of the one sense of Krishna, or one part of the body of Krishna can actually work as another one. For example, with our eyes, we can only see, but Krishna can eat through his eyes. Krishna can talk through his eyes. Krishna can smell through his eyes. He's not limited. So that way, he is without the senses, without senses of vivarjitam. Sarvendriya vivarjitam means that he does not have any material senses. Everything that he has is spiritual, spirit in nature, is transcendental in nature. He's unattached, although he's the maintainer of all living beings. This we studied in detail in 7th and 9th chapter, if you remember the Pearl definition, and also in 9th chapter, 4, 5, 6 verses, where he says that everything is resting upon me, but everything is not resting upon me. He transcends the modes of nature. So he's not under the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. He's a creator, right? Maya adhakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. And at the same time, he's a master of all the modes of material nature. The supreme truth exists both internally and externally, in the moving and non-moving. He is beyond the power of material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also very near to all. This kind of a qualification of Krishna described in verse 15 and verse 16 is called as apparent contradiction. And these apparent contradictions are described more detail in Isopnishad. Mantra 4 and Mantra 5 of Isopnishad describes this apparent contradiction. Have you ever seen something which exists internally and externally? Let's say that I am inside my house right now, okay? Or you are inside your house right now. Now, can you say that you are inside your house, but you're also outside your house? Like, can you say that?
No.
You're here also and you're there also.
No.
Okay, then let's say that I am running. Okay, then can I say that I'm moving, but I'm also not moving? Can I say that?
No.
Okay.
No.
So, but Krishna is like that. Krishna has all those qualities, that he's inside in my heart, and he's also outside in the form of his energy. He says that, right? Prabhu Ashmi Sashi Suryaha, I am the sun and light, I'm the taste of water, I'm the intelligence, I'm this. So he's outside also, and he's inside in my heart also. This is Parikshit Maharaj in the womb of his mother. So Parikshit Paramatma, Krishna was present in his heart, but he also came outside to save him from the master of Ashwathama. In the moving and non-moving, he is present in the heart of every living entity, whether it's a tree which is not moving, or whether it's us which are moving. He's beyond the power of material senses to see or to know. We cannot see Krishna with these eyes unless and until the heart is purified. Then Krishna gives the divine vision. But we cannot see Krishna. We can only see Krishna by hearing about Krishna, not by using our eyes to see Krishna. Krishna is always in Goloka Vrindavan, but he's also inside my own heart. So he's very, very far away, but he's also so near. This is called apparent contradiction. If you remember this word, then it will become easier when you join the level 2 course and we understand and read Isopnishad. Like there are more qualities described in those 2 mantras. He's the source of light in all luminous objects. He's beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He's the object of knowledge. And he's the goal of knowledge. He's situated in everyone's heart. Sometimes I feel Krishna has to take so much like garbage from us. We do so many sinful activities. And Krishna is like silently like watching it. And then if we seek forgiveness sincerely, he forgives also. My God, we put Krishna through so much. Thus the field of activity is the body. The field of activities, which is the body, the knowledge, which is the understanding, the field of activity, and the knower of field of activity, and the knowable. So this is the knowable thing, that what is soul, what is super soul, what is body, have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. So only Krishna's devotees can understand this. If somebody is not a devotee of Krishna and they're going to use their menial brain, what is this, what is that, what is this, they'll never be able to understand Krishna, right? Pantastu koti satasabhrava sevyamanam. One may run at a higher speed than that of a mind. Mind runs at a very high speed, right? Prabhupada gives example. Let's say that I am sitting in one part of the world and I want to go to my parents' house in India, and I want to go and I want to tell my mom that there is something in that cupboard, in that room, and on that shelf. So even though I'm sitting in one place, but my mind is already there. So fast the mind runs. The calculation, I think, is 900 miles per second. Something like that. In third canto, it is given. The speed of mind is calculated because it's material object. You can calculate. But even if somebody is running at the speed of mind, will still not be able to reach Krishna. Krishna will still run far away. Only a devotee can capture Krishna. Okay, so object of knowledge or gain. I'm sorry, this is a conversion from Keynote or Apple to my Microsoft. So Gainam, and what is the object of knowledge? Super soul and soul. Now he's going to talk about Prakriti and Purusha. Material nature and living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and modes of matter are products of matter. So remember, what are the 5 things that Bhagavad Gita talks about? And I discussed it in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. What are the 5 things that Bhagavad Gita talks about? Yes. 5 things that Bhagavad Gita talks about. Why only people who have already answered keep raising their hand? Malvika Mataji, can you tell me please, what are the 5 things that Bhagavad Gita talk about in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita?
5 things. Mataji, I'm getting confused only.
Okay. Okay. So 5 things is what is okay. Gaurav Govardhan Das Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, they are Jiva, Ishvara, Prakriti, Karma, and Kala.
Very nice. So out of the 5 things you said, which are eternal and which are not eternal?
Mataji, eternal are one second, Mataji.
Okay. Okay. Other than karma, everything is eternal. Karma is not eternal. Okay. So so this is Prakriti and Jiva or living entity. So they are eternal. That is why they are supposed to be beginningless. There is no beginning. There is no end. Thing that has not taken birth will not die. That means no beginning, no end. So that's what Krishna is saying. Prakriti and Jiva are supposed to be beginningless. But then how come there are so many species of life? How come we say that, okay, the material and the manifestations of material nature is always changing? Like Adi Bhuta is always, the seasons are changing. And sometimes whatever is created in the nature is destroyed. Right? We say that there is a environment crisis going on. So how come, if they are beginningless, then how come there are so many things going on in that place? So Krishna is answering that transformation and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Okay. So as a soul, I am not supposed to have the material body, but I get the material body based on my activity. If my activities are like that of a fish, Prabhupada gives example, he was in Los Angeles. If you hear this lecture, that there was this, Prabhupada said, you call surfer, people who surf on the sea waves, you call them surfer, I call them sufferer. Sufferer, because, you are interacting with that mode of nature where there is a lot of fun inside the water. So that means I'm associating with that mode. That means my next body is going to be that of a water animal. So based on what we interact with, what kind of a mode of nature we interact with, we get that kind of a body. If I am living my life in the mode of ignorance, then I'm going to get an animal body, which is in the mode of ignorance. If I am interacting with the mode of goodness, chanting Hare Krishna, then at least I will get a human body in the mode of goodness. So this is only products of material nature. They are not material nature itself, product of material nature. For example, if there is a businessman, okay, now the businessman is manufacturing, let's say, handloom. Okay. Now in the handloom, there's going to be a tag, right? That who is the designer. But can you say that this is the product of that particular designer, or will you say that this is a designer? What will you say?
Product of that.
Product of designer.
Product of the
Product
difference
of that
between.
design.
Oh, very nice. So similarly, the transformations are the product of material nature. They are not the material nature in itself. And that is happening because of modes of material nature. The three modes are acting everywhere. I was teaching my daughter the other day, there are 4 kinds of clouds. There are 51 kinds of winds. There are so many kinds of rains. They're all based on modes of nature. It's such a complicated environment. Karya karana kartitva hetu prakritirujyate purusha sukha dukha nam bhoktritve heturujyate. Nature is said to be the cause of material activities and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. So this verse answers a very commonly asked question. I think I'm going to go a little over today. And is that okay? Because the chapter is very hard. Is that okay? Few minutes extra?
Yes,
Will you be able to
Mataji.
say?
Yes,
No
Mataji, Hare
problem,
Krishna.
Mataji.
Okay, thank you. If someone has to leave, please feel free to leave and you can watch the recording later or read on your own or hear Prabhupada. There's so many options. Okay, so this answers the question why bad things happen to good people. This is a very commonly asked question. Why bad things happen to good people? Well, first of all, you define what is bad and what is good. Chaitanya Chaitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Prabhupada defines it. He says Dveta. Dveta means two. Bhadra. Bhadra means auspicious. Abhadra. Abhadra means inauspicious. Sakuli Sama. Dveta Bhadra. Bhadra Sakuli Sama. Ei banda, ei bhala, keval manobhrama. It is just the concoction of the mind that this is nice, this is not nice. But actually in the material world, everything is bad. Everything. So what is good? First define what's good. In that way, if we are not doing anything for Krishna, there is nothing good about it. In the sense that it is not leading me to rescue from the cycle of birth and death. So in that way, we face anything in our life. It's a very complicated place we are in. Anyhow, in the present body, if something is coming to me without much effort, it just means that I'm cashing out the karma from some life. May not be the immediate past life, but some life. Some karma has matured and now I'm reaping the effect, pious or impious. So, for example, this particular person has a choice to eat anything they want, right? They have a choice to eat. Krishna has given fruits also, vegetables also, milk also. And then this person has an accountability that they are choosing to eat anything and everything, including the meat, right? They can eat fresh vegetables, but it is their responsibility that they are eating this. Are you getting me?
Yes,
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 Mataji.
Mataji.
Okay, so now Krishna is not going to interact with that independence. Krishna gives independence of choice because he has already given the intelligence to choose wisely. But if we don't choose wisely, then he's not accountable. He's not accountable. We are accountable that I chose this. Krishna has given me both the options. And because I'm interacting and accepting something which shouldn't be accepted according to scriptural injunctions, that soul, the super soul is watching in the heart that this living entity still has a desire to enjoy the material world like this. Okay, then get a body of a hog where you can eat, or they can eat anything or everything and drink anything or everything. So that's actually a blessing in disguise, right? That because the living entity's desire was to exploit the nature like this. We can portray whatever in the public, but Krishna is in the heart. Krishna knows that where do I find my enjoyment? And based on that, my next body is authorized by Krishna to the material nature. Put this spirit soul in this body. Okay, so this is what it means. Nature is said to be the cause of all material activities and effects. Means it gives us a platform. It's giving us all these products of different animals, different types of varieties of food, different types of milk or water. All these things are coming from the nature. So it's a cause of material activities and effect. Whereas the living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyment in this world. So whatever I'm enjoying and whatever I'm suffering, I need to look at what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong in making my choice? Krishna is not responsible. Krishna is only overseer and sanctioner, which is also coming. Purusha prakriti sthohi bhungte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sango asya shad ashadjan yoni jadmeshu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to the association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil amongst various species. This should be easy to understand. Living entity in material nature thus follows ways of life. That person wants to eat anything and everything, so they are enjoying the way of life in the mode of ignorance, right? Associating with that mode of ignorance, and then we meet the consequences of good and evil amongst various species of making these choices. So that is why we have to make choices. So where does Krishna stand in all this? Upadrishta anumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwaraha paramatiti cha api yukto dehe asmin purusha paraha. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as Upadrishta, overseer, and Anumanta, or permitter, and who is known as the super soul. So super soul is transcendently enjoying. His enjoyment is not dependent on my choice of enjoyment in the material world. No. But he's acting as an overseer and permitter. Say, okay, you want to enjoy life in this way. You have such a strong desire to enjoy material world in this way. So under Krishna's permission, the material nature brings all those things in front of us. You wanted to enjoy like this. And then we get reminded also, like memory is also coming from Krishna. And then we do it. And then there is an effect. But Krishna doesn't take responsibility of the effect. God is not responsible. I am responsible. And now, if I don't have proper guidance now, what to do from here on further, because material choices always leads to misery. It is always, in the long run, material choices are miserable. And then what happens? Then we have to make another choice. And if we still don't follow the injunctions of the Shastras or Guru or Sadhu, then again we create another position for us. And then again, the cycle goes on. Bhagavad Gita is so practical. One who understands this philosophy concerning the material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. So at least Krishna understands that this chapter is so tough. So he's giving Shrutifal. This is called Shrutifal. That who understands this philosophy. Which philosophy? Concerning Prakriti, material nature, Jiva, living entity, and the interaction of modes of nature. How are they interacting? Oh, by the way, living entity in this particular chapter is addressed as Purusha. Now, Purusha doesn't mean male. Okay, the literal meaning of the word Purusha is enjoyer. So in that way, so only enjoyer is Krishna, but in the conditioned life, the living entity is also trying to be the enjoyer. So that is why in this chapter, the living entity, the conditioned soul, is addressed as Purusha. Okay, so you have to understand this. I get so many questions in email that why women are not accepted or whatever, like women are considered inferior. But it's not like that. Purusha literally means enjoyer. In that way, both male and female are Purusha because they both want to enjoy the material world. And then the interaction between material nature and the living entity under the influence of modes of nature. Understand this philosophy and attain liberation, and will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. So nice, right? Then that super soul is perceived by some through meditation, by some through cultivation of knowledge, and by others through working without fruitive desire. So somebody is doing jnana, dhyana, meditation, somebody is doing knowledge cultivation, that is jnana, and somebody is doing nishkam karma yoga or bhakti yoga. So everyone have their own way of understanding this super soul. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. So nice, right? Somehow, if we end up in Krishna conscious atmosphere, Krishna does not consider how we came. He does not. He does not consider, oh, this person is so pious, was born in such a nice family, and then he or she, they heard about me, and then they came, and the other person, oh, this person was a hippie, but somehow heard Hare Krishna, then they started Hare Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and they came to Krishna. For Krishna, both are same. Both are equally important because they both have a tendency to hear about Krishna, and both will transcend the birth and death path, both of them. Okay, so Krishna consciousness is such a non-judgmental platform, but it's a very high level. We are not at that level, but that's what it means. So Lord Krishna explains in verses 20 to 26 that we just finished, Prakriti, Purusha and their union. O chief of Bhartas, whatever you see in existence, both moving and unmoving, is only the combination of field of activities and the knower of the field. So it becomes the material life looks so menial, right? Because he's saying whatever you see in existence, both moving and unmoving, is only a combination of the field of activity and the knower of the field. So there is a field and then there is a knower of the field. That's all. And we are so proud of this knowledge, but that is only like, what is it? What part of this chapter? Not even 50%. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu tishthanam parameshwaram vinashyatsi avinashyantam ya pashyati sapashyati. One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies and who understands that neither soul nor super soul is ever destroyed actually sees. So this is the actual sees. Yaha pashyati sa pashyati. Yaha means this vision. This vision means what vision? That one is able to see soul and super soul. Actually, that person will, now this is one who sees super soul in every living being and equal everywhere, does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendental destination. So this instruction, every day I remember this. And there is one more in 6th chapter, which every day I remember, that one should not degrade oneself with the use of the mind. Rather, elevate yourself in Krishna consciousness. And this also, that Prabhupada writes here, right? That one who sees super soul equally present everywhere in living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches a transcendental destination. So I am not supposed to degrade my existence by the use of my mind, because I am never independent of the vision of the Supreme Soul. So in that way, if I have to do something, why not upgrade? We are always upgrading our life, right? Is there anyone here who wants to degrade their life or standard of living? Do you want to degrade your standard of living?
No.
Okay, so how many of you would like to upgrade your phone, upgrade your standard of living, upgrade everything in life? All of us, like
All of us, Mataji.
upgrades, right? So why not by using the mind upgrade to Krishna consciousness? So one who can see that all activities are performed by body, which is created of material nature, and sees that self does nothing, actually sees. So we think that I'm the doer, I have to change my position in life, I have to do this, I have to do that. So that particular person has no faith in Krishna. There's no faith that there is that actually Krishna will take care of me. Krishna, why don't I go to Krishna and say the prayers and express honestly that what I'm going through? But a non-devotee, even though they may look like devotee, okay, it's not that okay, everyone who's chanting Hare Krishna is a devotee. No. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, today where I am, there's a Bhaktivinoda Thakur Prabhupada appearance day. So he says that there are people who are dressed up as devotees. They have kanti beads, they're chanting Hare Krishna, they have tilak on their face. They may even live in a dham, and they may even speak very highly in philosophy, but they are called Kali Chela. Right? Kali Chela means Chela of the Kali. Why? Because there is no faith. There is no faith that Krishna can actually protect me. That's why I have to manipulate my condition like this, like that. But a person in Krishna consciousness is full of faith. And we have examples. Prahlad Maharaj was facing so much calamity from his own father, but he never prayed to Krishna, change my condition, I'm suffering so much, right? Or Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was beaten up in 21 marketplaces because he was chanting Hare Krishna. But he also never prayed to Krishna that changed my position. Yes, I understand that there is a difference between them and us. I mean, we get disturbed because our mind is disturbed. It's actually bottoms down to the mind. Because of the disturbance of mind, we get disturbed. And those devotees, their mind was completely saturated with Krishna consciousness, so there was no material disturbance. But at least we can pray to them rather than trying to be independently independent. Our independence is interdependent. And this example of this verse can be, let's say that you're driving a car. Okay, you're driving a car, you enter the car, you turn on the engine, and then you drive and go around. And you go from point A to point B, finish the work, and then ultimately you get out of the car. So what would you say? That even though you were in the car, but did you really do anything in the car? Were you a part of the engine? Were you a part of the tire? Were you?
No.
No.
So even though you were seated in the car, so that is the relationship between the soul and the body. Even though the soul is inside the body, but it is still not doing anything which runs the body. Okay, self does nothing, actually sees. Sorry. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, although situated in that body. So the soul doesn't mix and become one with the muscle or blood or bones. It always remains separate, even though it is in the body. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does living entity one within the body illuminate the entire body by consciousness. So I gave a glimpse of it, right? That entire body is illuminated by the power of the soul, and that illumination of the whole body is called consciousness. One who knowingly sees that this difference between the body and the owner of the body can understand the process of liberation from this bondage, also attains to the supreme goal. Knowingly see. Okay. So this is what we discussed today. Thank you so much for staying extra. That Arjuna asked 6 question to Krishna. Krishna, what is Purusha? What is Prakriti? What is Kshetra? What is Kshetragnam? What is Jnanam? And what is Genam? And description of Kshetra and Kshetragna and Jnana. So Kshetra is the field of activity. Kshetragna is the knower of the field of activity. And how many knowers are there? 2. What are they? Soul and super soul. What is Jnana? To know about this, Kshetra and Kshetragna. Kshetragnam cha api mam vidhi. This is described in verse 2 to 7. Then process of acquiring knowledge. How do we extricate ourselves from this Kshetra? The 20 qualities are described between verse 8 to 12. Mai cha ananya yogena. And Genam, object of knowledge, 13 to 19. Sarvata pani padam tad. Object of knowledge is to know this, Paramatma. Then Prakriti, Purusha, and the interaction between the two, the union from verse 20 to 26. Karanam gunasanga asya, shadasha janma yonishu. Both are eternal, but then they look like they're not eternal. And vision of knowledge is yaha pashyati sa pashyati, who sees that the soul is situated in the body, but is never a part of the body, and it alone illuminates the body, actually sees. So 27 to 35, Kshetra Kshetragnor evam antaram jnana chakshushaha. Okay, so difficult chapter, but not so difficult if you study and read properly. And I want to show, okay, do you have time to watch the video, or we can directly go to question answers also, because I expect good question answers in this.
We have time, Mataji.
Yeah, we have time.
Okay, so I'm going to show one video and then we will